Okay, let's try and unpack this, because I have to be honest, when I first saw the topic for today's deep dive, I thought it had to be a joke. I really did.
I mean, you can see why.
Right. We cover some really heavy, complex subjects here. Financial crimes, geopolitical shifts. And then the header for this one is Jeffrey Epstein and beef jerky.
It sounds like the setup for a really bad punchline, doesn't it? Or just some bizarre internet meme that got out of hand.
Exactly.
But, as we've seen again and again with these investigations, the devil is always in the details. And the details here are just baffling.
They really are. So for everyone listening, we're diving into a transcript from a pretty skeptical investigation. It's an analysis of the Epstein files done in that sort of as Mongold clips react commentary style.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission today is strange. We're not looking at the flight logs. We're not looking at the big names. We are looking at this very specific recurring obsession inside these emails.
Mm-hmm.
Dried, cured meat.
And I think it's important to set the lens correctly here before we jump in. We're looking at anomalies. The source material is basically just pointing out things that do not fit the pattern of, normal human behavior.
Right.
We're not stating crimes as facts. We are analyzing logistical oddities. Because if you strip away all the context, the way these people handled beef jerky it's just not how anyone handles snacks.
Not at all. If I like jerky, I go to a store, I buy jerky. I don't need a logistics team. I definitely don't need a freezer. So here's the roadmap. First, the frozen jerky paradox, which honestly drives me crazy. Then we're going to talk about a restaurant with a, let's just say, very unfortunate name, a supposed lab analysis of this snack food, and then it gets really dark. We're talking claims about sulfuric acid and cults.
It takes a pretty sharp turn, yeah. But let's start with the emails themselves, because that's where this whole code word theory really starts.
So the big internet theory, and what the source video is reacting to, is that beef jerky isn't beef jerky. It's a code word. Maybe for drugs, maybe for, the theories get dark. Human remains.
And people get there because of emails like this one. There's a message where a contact writes, Jay said he was going to start eating regular food again, so he might be eating less jerky.
Regular food.
That is the first red flag the source just latches onto. Regular food. Think about the language there. If you or I are on a diet or eating a lot of protein, we don't say jerky isn't regular food. It's food. It's meat.
You'd say, I'm going back to carbs or something.
Exactly. Or I'm having cooked meals again. The phrasing here implies that jerky is in a totally separate category.
It sounds almost medical, like I'm off the meds, I'm back on regular food, or like it's contraband, I'm off the hard stuff. But here, this is where it gets really weird for me, the freezer.
Yes.
An email that explicitly states he said he has 6 bags of it in a downstairs freezer.
And this is what we're calling the preservation paradox. I mean, let's just apply some basic logic here. What is beef jerky? Historically, why was it invented?
To preserve meat, so you don't need a fridge.
Precisely. You cure it, you dry it, you salt it specifically so that it's shelf-stable. That is its entire purpose.
I've left jerky in my car's glove box through a whole summer, and it was maybe a little tough, but it was fine.
It's totally fine. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
And yet in these files, there's this complete panic about keeping it cold. The source highlights instructions like a small insulated bag would be fine, and I suppose it needs to be in a cold insulated bag.
They're treating dried meat like it's a transplant organ.
Or a volatile chemical. It makes no sense.
Or like it's something that isn't actually cured properly. Or maybe something that isn't beef. The source brings up an instruction about the transport that says, no need for crazy amount of ice, one should do.
That precision is what's so off. Why the micromanagement? If it's a snack, you throw it in a box and go.
Yeah. And the rationing. You have to hear this detail from the source. Steve needs a 6 to 8 ounce portion.
A portion?
Not give Steve a bag. It's a measured dose. It sounds so clinical.
It does. And then there's the urgency that the source material points out. Steve Hansen is sending jerky to your attention overnight. Overnight shipping. For a snack.
I mean, I know billionaires can waste money, but that implies a real necessity. Why did this jerky have to be there the next day?
And then there's the phrase that it stopped the commentator in his tracks, and it did the same for me.
Oh, I know which one you mean.
We'll walk the jerky over to Jeffrey.
Walk the jerky?
I mean...
You don't. You don't walk jerky. You walk a dog. You walk a person to their car. You don't walk a bag of snacks. You carry it. You bring it.
It personifies the object. That's what's so weird. Linguistically, you use walk like that for an object that has legs. It implies you're escorting it.
We're escorting someone.
What? Exactly. If we look at it through the lens of that code word theory, walking a victim over makes perfect grammatical sense. We'll walk the victim over to Jeffrey.
But if it's a bag of snacks, it just sounds like an alien wrote it. Greetings, I am walking the protein. It's just wrong.
It's so wrong. And if you think that freezer thing is weird, we absolutely have to talk about the lab.
Oh, man. This is the part that made my jaw drop. The source reads from an email, and it says, I'll email Francis to make us some more, as I need 6 to 8 ounces to send to the lab, and I'll forward to Francis the info to send to the lab directly.
Just pause on that. Let that sink in.
Who sends beef jerky to a lab for analysis?
Nobody, unless you're like the FDA or you're investigating a contamination.
Or unless you need to check for something really specific. Purity. DNA. A disease. The source asks the most obvious question. What were they testing for?
You don't test a batch of cookies you made at home. This isn't a commercial operation. It implies a kind of quality control, but not for taste. You don't need a lab for that. You need a mouth.
A lab tests for chemical makeup, biological markers, which again aligns so uncomfortably with that code word theory. If jerky is biological material, you absolutely send that to a lab.
You test for pathogens. You test for compatibility.
And speaking of who's making it, let's talk about Francis, because the source material connects this Francis to a restaurant. And I swear if you put this in a movie script, they'd send it back. They'd say, that's too obvious, change the name.
It is incredibly on the nose. Francis, the supplier, works at a restaurant called Cannibal and Cooks.
Cannibal and Cooks.
The source highlights this with just a ton of irony. The email says he will bring you to taste his new jerky recipe from the restaurant. So you've got a supplier from a place called Cannibal providing a special meat that needs to be frozen, walked over, and, oh yeah, sometimes tested in a lab.
Feels like that thing they call duping delight. You know, hiding in plain sight. It's like they're mopping everyone.
It's a characteristic often theorized about these circles, the thrill of telling the truth in a way that's so absurd nobody could possibly believe you. Where'd you get this meat? Oh, from the cannibal. Haha. Very funny.
It gives them plausible deniability through absurdity.
Exactly. But let's even strip that away. Forget the conspiracy. Why is Jeffrey Epstein, a man who can get any food on Earth, obsessed with this one item from this one guy at a place called Cannibal? The source even found an email from Epstein himself asking, is there a time I could come say hi and drop off the beef jerky?
He's acting like a delivery boy.
That's a huge power shift, right? Usually people bring things to the billionaire. Here, the billionaire is personally moving the jerky. It suggests the stuff has a value or a sensitivity that requires his personal handling.
Okay, so we've got the frozen meat, the lab tests, the cannibal chef. But then the source material takes a really hard pivot.
Right.
We stop looking at the internal files, and we start looking at a user on Twitter.
Right. This is where we go from internal logistics to external and much darker accusations. The source identifies a Twitter user who claims to be Epstein's last girlfriend, his last confidant.
And before anyone dismisses this, the source points out a pretty big verification detail. Her name matches a name found inside the actual files. And her name was changed on the platform back in 2017.
Which was way before the files were made public.
Exactly. So she knew the names before the rest of the world did. It gives her some credibility as an insider. But her defense of Epstein is, well, it's complicated.
To say the least, she tweets things like, Jeffrey was innocent, he didn't do nothing wrong, and that he was trapped by powerful people.
It's that classic pattern, Stockholm Syndrome or just deep, deep manipulation. But then she pivots to what he was supposedly trapped in. And that's where the source transcript just goes off the rails.
Yeah, she does not hold back. She claims, quote, they sacrificed children to Lucifer. She calls it an entire cult.
And she says Epstein only got involved for financial reasons to get compromise, blackmail material. She insists he never participated in the rituals.
That feels like splitting hairs, doesn't it? I just filmed the ritual, I didn't participate. But then she drops this dead man's switch style warning. She says, I'm not suicidal just in case, and I have the evidence that they're still hiding.
It raises the stakes so much, because if you take the weirdness about the jerky, the frozen secret meat, the lab tests, and you look at it through the lens of her claims about rituals and cults,
then the cannibal restaurant stops being a funny coincidence and starts looking like a piece of a very, very narrow puzzle.
It paints a picture where the jerky isn't a snack. It's a byproduct of those alleged rituals.
That's the implication the source is driving at. And just when you think, okay, this is all just, it's wild speculation from someone on the internet, the source pulls out a hard document, a receipt.
The sulfuric acid.
Yeah, a wire transfer request form.
I'm reading from the source text. It lists 65 gallons sulfuric acid with fuel and insurance charge.
65 gallons. Now, I've looked this up. You might use some acid for pool maintenance, okay? But 65 gallons, that's an industrial quantity. On a private island.
The source is pretty blunt about the theory. The commentator just reads it and says, they are dissolving bodies.
It's the whole Breaking Bad theory. But scientifically, it's valid. Sulfuric acid is one of the few things that can completely break down organic matter, bone, tissue, everything into a sludge. If you have what the girlfriend is describing, you've got a disposal problem.
It's gruesome.
Yeah.
But you have to connect the dots the source is laying out for us. You've got these claims of rituals, you've got a purchase order for 65 gallons of industrial acid, and you have this bizarre obsession with frozen meat being stored in a basement freezer.
It really recontextualizes that regular food email, doesn't it? Jay said he was going to start eating regular food again. If the alternative was what the source suggests, then regular food takes on this horrifying new meaning.
It means food that wasn't a person.
And looking at that acid purchase, you don't buy that much acid for a hobby. You buy it for a process. The source links it to fuel charges too, meaning this was a heavy industrial delivery. They paid extra to get it there.
So what does it all add up to? We have these bizarre emails about jerky that needs to be walked and frozen, a chef from Cannibal and Cooks, an insider screaming about Luciferian cults, and a receipt for enough acid to, well, to get rid of a lot.
It means the standard narrative that this was just some finance guy with a twisted moral compass throwing bad parties, that narrative has huge holes in it. The logistical anomalies suggest a system of procurement, a system of consumption, and a system of disposal.
The source video ends on this one really provocative thought I hadn't even considered. It's about evidence, or the lack of it.
Photographic evidence.
Yeah. The question is asked, are there any recorded images of Jeffrey Epstein with beef jerky at all?
And the answer, from what they can find, is no. Think about that. We have photos of him everywhere. On the island, on his plane, at parties. We have thousands of pages of documents and emails obsessing over this one food item. It was supposedly his favorite thing. And yet, he is never, not once, seen eating it.
If it was just a snack, you'd think there'd be a wrapper on a table. A photo of him chewing on a piece while talking to someone famous. But there is nothing.
Which suggests the consumption of this particular item wasn't a public act. It was private, it was hidden, or as the code word theory suggests, it wasn't something he'd eat in front of a camera at all.
That is chilling. It implies that the drinky was never meant to be seen, that the act of eating it was something that had to happen behind closed doors.
Now, we have to maintain our skepticism. That's what we do. Maybe he just really liked preservative-free jerky that spoils easily. Maybe the acid was for a massive water treatment project. Maybe Cannibal and Cooks is just an edgy bistro name.
Sure. And maybe I send my potato chips to a lab for analysis every week just to be safe.
Point taken. When you stack all of these coincidences up, the innocent explanation is the one that actually requires more mental gymnastics. You have to make an excuse for the freezer and the lab and the name and the acid.
And the language.
And the language. The code word theory, as horrifying as it is, actually streamlines the logic. It's the one theory that explains everything all at once.
It makes the picture clear, but the picture is, it's a nightmare. And that's what's so unsettling about this. We're not looking at witness testimony of a specific crime. We're looking at the receipts for how they lived. And the receipts are terrifying.
Well, on that note, we'd love to know what you think. Is this just the extreme eccentricity of a billionaire with weird habits? Or is jerky the key to understanding a much darker part of this story?
Look at the details yourself. The freezer, the lab, the acid. Decide for yourself.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We will see you next time, hopefully with a lighter topic.
Promises.